What is the most embarrassing thing to have happen to you at work? I had a tooth fall out during a big meeting with all the higher ups. I made a joke about the company needing a better dental plan. I got laid off a week later. One afternoon while waiting tables I was crazy busy. What appeared to be two bald men came in and grabbed a table, and in my rush, I didn't take more than a cursory glance at them before saying, "Hey fellas, I'll be right with you." When I came back to take their order, one of them was sobbing uncontrollably. It turned out to be a man and his wife that was going through chemo. After several incidents of being addressed as ladies when eating out with my long-haired dude friend, I stopped giving gender-specific greetings to my tables. I used to work in a place that renovated vending machines, and my job was to find all of the different models they had and get measurements for each one. This involved me spending most of my time exploring the deepest parts of the storage warehouse. You know that ridiculously massive warehouse in Indiana Jones? It looked like that, but filled only with vending machines. So I'm taking some measurements far from civilization and I back up to look at the machine. My mind wanders to the fact that I had been learning how to kick karate style, and suddenly I have a powerful urge to do a kick or two to check out my progress. So I do. I am in the middle of nowhere, after all, and I've been working pretty productively. As I'm finishing my last kick, for the first and only freaking time this ever happened, my boss appears behind me. He had a random question to ask, so he came and found me. So, trying out some kung fu there? Yup. So awkward it hurt. I'd like to see a vending machine that sells vending machines. It'd have to be real freaking big. R.I.P. Mitch. My first day at my internship in the HR depth of a big company, my boss came in my cubicle to say hello, and then, very nicely, but still, informed me that I had dropped a tampon under my chair. Also, earlier that same day I'd gone to another floor to sign some paperwork, and I was directed to wait in a dark and presumably unoccupied conference room. Turns out it was dark but not unoccupied. Instead, there was a middle-aged man in a suit crying inside. And that was my first welcome to corporate America. Heyo. Upvoted because I have been that crying man. I'm a waiter. I was serving a family with 2 young children and I had just dropped off their drinks and was in the process of taking their orders. As I'm taking the father's order, their youngest daughter, maybe 4 years old, gets up from her seat, walks over to me, wraps her arms around my thighs, and kisses me right on the crotch. She then giggled loudly and scampered back into her chair. Her mother just looked at me and said, "She likes you." All I could say was soup or salad. This happened yesterday. My network card on my office computer went bad, and IT can't get to it until next week. So I temporarily moved to my boss's old cubicle. That computer obviously doesn't have any of my files, software, permissions, etc. So I had absolutely nothing to do. My colleague and I had talked about my lack of work that day. He sent me a message via internal office IM and said, "Come to my office when you get a sec." I walked in and said, "I have tons of sex." Every male in the office popped his head up out of the cube and stared at me. Upvoted because I have tons of sex too. When I worked at a sandwich shop, I often daydreamed during the slow times early in the morning. I was making a guy a sandwich and thinking about my social life, and instead of finding out the type of cheese I should put on, I asked, "What kind of friends do you want?" It doesn't sound that bad, but it was so goddamn random. Not like calling your teacher mum or something. Who the frick confuses cheese with friends? Worst of all, he answered me, ones who are kind and fun to be with. My first job ever, I worked at a Home Depot type store and we all had to wear aprons like they do there. I finished ringing someone up and pushed the register drawer closed with my hip. Try to step away from the register. Can't. Awesome. Try to reach back and untie the apron. Can't do that either. So I just leaned there all nonchalant waiting for the next customer so the drawer will open and hoping the building doesn't catch on fire. This old couple comes up and I ring them up, standing awkwardly sideways at the register because I can't turn around. But they pay with a credit card. The drawer didn't open for those. Damn it. The old lady gives me a funny look and says, "Are you stuck in the register?" I told her, "Yeah, don't worry about it." But this sweet old lady wanted to help and yells to her husband, who had started to walk away to buy something with cash because I was trapped in the register. Walking back from the bathroom, through the front desk area to kitchen and all the way to my desk, with my skirt tucked into my panties. I've done that. The embarrassing part is that I'm a dude. Not so much embarrassing for me, but definitely awkward. I was a cocktail waitress at a comedy club while in college. The seats in the club were set up stadium style, tiered, so I would go up and down the stairs taking orders from the aisles. I should also note that I wore kind of a short cheerleader type skirt. One night I was walking up the stairs taking orders before the show, and a man tried to get my attention by touching me on the arm because I was looking the other way. At the exact moment he went to touch my arm, I walked up a step and his hand went under my skirt and essentially slapped my butt. I turned around and the man was absolutely mortified. I mean mortified. It didn't take me long to realize he had done it by mistake, but I'll never forget the look on his face when he thought he was going to be arrested for smacking a college girl on the butt. That man needs an acting degree. I was at a urinal at work, a hall bathroom that served several doctors' offices and tech firms on the floor, when my cell phone rang in my pocket. I looked at the caller ID and noticed it was this company calling that I had applied to and really wanted the new job. In a panic, I started to tuck and zip, and use the other hand to answer the phone, only to suddenly remember that the toilets automatically flushed, and the flushing sound in the echo would give away the fact that I was in a men's room when I answered the call. I hurriedly rushed to the door and flung it open, simultaneously saying hello in a non-super reflective environment and far enough away from the flushing so that it was inaudible. It was at this moment I realized my dong was still hanging out of my open fly. I sat down at my desk to start the day at all when I heard a few stitches come loose in my pants. I didn't think too much of until I was prancing up and down the office hallway taking a call on my mobile. Must have been doing it for over 20 minutes when I get a tap on my shoulder by the CEO's son. I suggest you get your butt back home and change your pants. My entire backside only covered by my tighty whities were on display for a good 20 goddamn minutes, and the only person who had the balls to tell me was the CEO. And that's why he's the CEO. P.S. Emergency pants in the car. Always a good idea. I work in a small room with 4 other people. Once I was about to leave work, so I said bye everyone, to which no one responded or looked up from their desks. So I got up, farted audibly, then left. I should have been embarrassed, but I laughed the entire car ride home. No one ever said anything to me about it. I am a secretary. I tripped in a darkened conference room where the people I support were doing a presentation. I fell squarely into the vice president's lap. He said oof really loudly and everybody turned around. I'm not sure why I found the oof so funny. Toothpaste is an awesome way to cure a pimple, unless you forget to remove it from your face during your first week of work, giving the impression that instead of a little tiny zit on the side of your nose, you have a suppurating white minty pustule. Suppurating white minty pustule is a great line to read in Stewie Griffin's voice. For the first year at one job, I always used the women's bathroom. I'm a man. It was in a somewhat stylish theater, and the bathrooms were labeled dames and gents. The lettering was vertical, if that makes any difference. So, for some reason I thought dames was actually demens. Since it was all stylized and whatnot. Alright, I can't freaking explain it. I just did it. Okay. Then one day I caught someone giving me a weird look as I went into the bathroom, but wasn't sure why. When I came out I actually looked at the door, read dames, remembered the gents door, and then my brain kicked in with all the shame and that good stuff. I was a seasonal driver helper for UPS during Christmas time years ago. Because the drivers were generous and made 27 per hour while I made 8.50, they would often offer to fill me up with drinks and snacks to make the day seem less long. Typically I'd start around noon and finish out the day, but on this particular day I met up with the guy in the morning and he had already picked out things for me to munch on. Problem is, I wasn't thinking. Ever since I could remember, eating too much too early in the day gives me painful midday bloats and gas. Around midday, of course, along came the bloat. He said he got a bonus if he came back to the warehouse before a certain time, so he didn't want to make any stops as payment for my snacks. I was so puffed up my stomach was distended and I was in pain. And I had to jump off the truck and run back and forth up the driveways to the doorsteps. Finally, at night, with my teeth clenched, I noticed it's gotten windier and the door on my side is always open. He's gone in the back to sort boxes by address, and figure I have my chance. I unloaded such a large volume of trapped gas so suddenly through such a relatively small space that I thought I might have actually torn my butthole and started to bleed. Cue smell of reclaimed water and rotten eggs and fermentation of Dr. Pepper, Twizzlers, and crap, and the wind dying, and him coming back to the front. "Did you just crap your pants?" Both honestly and dishonestly. I exclaimed no. Why? Because of the crap smell. I don't know what. And then I actually reached the limits of nasal absorption on my own fragrance and projectile vomited on my lap, the seats, the floor under the dash, and thanks to a high mucus content, the part of the street directly underneath us. After derision, laughter and tears and cleaning up while mobile, we finished the night and I worked there for another month till Christmas Day. Packages delivered rain, shine, or something else entirely. TL, DR, garbage in, 2 kinds of garbage out. Both should be purged in private, neither were. Hey boss, I think we should follow up with coworker A on her budget. She's spending like crazy, and is really selfish when it comes to working out future state. I just did a quick mid-year analysis and she's horrible at managing the finances of her department. We'll need to babysit her for the rest of the year. Go to add my boss in the to section of the email, and was thinking the name of coworker A, which led me to type in coworker A's name and hit send without realizing. Just play it off like this is what I'll send to boss. If you don't get control of your budget, then you're hardest and also can be cleared of tattletaling because you tried to clear it up yourself first. While sitting in my cubicle one day, I felt a horribly uncomfortable fart building up. I attempted to get up and walk to the ladies' restroom in time to pass my gas in peace, but nope. Just let out a long, clearly audible fart as I dashed past my boss' office in embarrassed panic. He made a fart joke later in the day, too. He knew. Times like this, your username really comes into play. Not me, but my friend BJ was interviewing for a great job alongside another guy named Nathan. They met the head of the company who comments to the other guy, "I can't remember the last time we had a Nathan in the office." Well, in an apparent vacuum of thought, my friend asks, totally innocently and with his sweet smile, "When was the last time you had a BJ in the office?" He did get the job. He does not go by BJ anymore. At my first job out of school, we had this really cute receptionist. I would go up to her desk every day and shoot the crap with her for the last 10 minutes or so of work. She really appreciated it because much of her job was apparently all the old engineers hitting on her all day. One day the owner of the company came up to me and told me to get back to my desk because I was hurting company morale by making the receptionist look unavailable. The most WTF conversation ever. 6 weeks later at the company Christmas party, the engineering department had composed and sang a song about her shooting me down, explaining why I was never at the front desk anymore. They had a chorus line complete with kicks and detailed descriptions of my apparently hilarious failure. That crap was embarrassing. While sitting at my desk, I tend to cross my feet in a weird, one foot over the other way. Once, someone came over to speak to me at my cubicle, and as I was rotating my chair to look at them, I forgot to uncross my feet and tripped over myself, falling face first to the ground. So yeah, I tripped on my own 2 feet while sitting down. You know, I read this and said how pretty funny, and expected that to be it. But somewhere between my eyes reading this and scrolling, my face went into one of those silent, vein-popping spasms of industrial grade laughter. My face physically hurts right now. Thank you. I'm very picky about taking a crap at work. Don't know why. A lot of folks consider it free money. For me, however, I've never really enjoyed crapping at work. Well, one day it was unavoidable. The maelstrom of Mexican food and a fiber one bar the day before had taken its toll, and I knew that we were swiftly approaching DEFCON1. I tried to figure a way to nonchalantly go about it. However, the restrooms are located in places that are near other folks' offices. I work in a small building with 15 employees. The restrooms aren't, shall we say, isolated. I made small talk with the receptionist, then made my way to the restroom, closed the door, concentrated on making my crap escape my bowels as silently as possible. Fail. It sounded like a combination of those clicking noises the Predator makes and a Browning machine gun. I grimaced as I knew I could do nothing and everyone had to have heard it. I even tried to do the whole coughing while you crap thing to make it seem like it was something else. Gave that idea up pretty quickly. Once I finished and the room sufficiently smelled like a septic tank, I pranced out of the restroom, made zero eye contact, walked as close to the walls as possible trying to still be the crap ninja. Yeah, that whole experience was fairly embarrassing. TLDR. Tried to take a silent crap, ended up sounding like World War I. If this happens, you might as well just act proud. Come out of the bathroom beatboxing. High fives all around. Put on sunglasses and put your feet up on the desk. Promotion. You missed your chance. My first job was as a cleaner at my local police station. I got keys to the building and everything. I felt like such a badass. The evening of my first solo shift, I leant over the massive industrial bin to chuck the rubbish down, and the keys plunged from my shirt pocket right into the middle of the bin, where I couldn't reach them. I had to get a sergeant to lower me down by the ankles, with all his mates stood around sniggering and pointing out that losing the station keys was probably a criminal offense. TLDR. I got shaken over a dustbin by the policeman whose supper I interrupted. I was 15, working in an office filing papers, during a time where I had to jerk off like 3x a day. While at work I popped wood and decided to take care of it in the bathroom. Naturally, I put down toilet paper on the seat prior to doing my deed. After finishing, I zipped up and went back to my paper filing. Every who walked by kept looking at me and laughing. I thought they knew somehow, but couldn't figure it out. It ended up being that when I pulled up my pants, I got a long piece of toilet paper stuck in my waist and it was dragging behind me all day. It was embarrassing, but quite a relief compared to what I thought they were laughing at. I love that you say that it was a time in your life when you had to jerk off 3x a day. My first job was a bagger at my local grocery store. During my first week, I had the pleasure of bagging the boss's groceries. My boss was kind of soft-spoken, so he came over to me and muttered something about me going and putting the groceries in that purple truck outside while he finished up a few things in his office. Now, I could have sworn I heard him say purple truck, and as rare of a color that is, what do you think I saw when I got outside? A bright but purple truck. Being new, and not knowing what the boss drove, I walked right up to this truck, opened the door, it was unlocked, furthering my belief that this was the boss's truck, and set the groceries inside. I walked back into the store feeling pretty good about myself. About 10 minutes later, my boss came up to me asking me where I put his groceries. I responded, I put them in the purple truck like he asked me to. He goes all white in the face and says, no, I told you to put them in the black truck. So basically I gave my boss's groceries away during my first week, because of the most unfortunate of misunderstandings and strokes of bad luck I've ever experienced. I was doing some lab testing at my company's headquarters. The lab was wicked loud, lots of servers, so huge air handlers. You had to walk through a small office to access the lab. The office had about 10 people in it and was dead quiet. So I get up to go to the restroom, and just as I open the door to the small office, my co-worker asks me where I'm going. After being in that lab for a couple hours, my voice was on screaming mode. Basically, I opened the door to the office and screamed I gotta take a pee. I walked back in the lab and held it. I had a long panel interview for a higher level position I wanted. After 60 minutes of dazzling conversation and answering all their questions, I stood up to shake their hands goodbye. Unfortunately, having your legs crossed for 60 minutes will make one fall asleep. I ended up dragging my numb leg out walking like Igor. And thus, the name Shaky Jake was born. So I was selling this bra to a lady, 38F, not a big deal. She pays with a $100 bill. Me knowing I had almost no change, I say, dang, that's a big one. All I meant was, that is a big bill. Don't know if I have change. So the lady gets all mad and says, "Well, excuse me for having big tea." I died. I was talking about the bill. I love your huge sugar tea. I was working the front desk of a hotel. The new manager was due to show up. The owner brought him in, introduced him to me, and as soon as I reached over to shake his hand, the button on my blouse just popped right open. It went okay. We have 3 kids now. It was too late. He'd seen everything. On the way home from the engineering firm I was doing a summer internship at, I was listening to the audiobooks of Harry Potter. When the books reached the battle at the Ministry of Magic at the end of the 5th book, I was stopped at a set of traffic lights. I looked around to see my supervisor in the next lane laughing at me whilst I mimed a wand fight. I loved listening to the Harry Potter audiobooks. I used to listen to them while I lifted. Felt like a little hideaway. All of these meatheads around me listening to Slayer and Metallica, and I'm at Hogwarts doing my thing. I remember I was doing some bicep curls during a sad part and started tearing up. LOL. So awkward but so great. I work in a small IT room for a healthcare company. I have my own little section in the corner of the room to do as I please. One normal day I was just sitting here browsing Reddit when I needed to let out a little poot. Just a tiny fart. It wasn't even a struggle. I relaxed my muscles and let it loose. But to my absolute horror, I quickly realized I had opened the floodgates to something unexpected and out starts pouring this hot, sticky poo juice. It wasn't something I could hide or go clean up in the bathroom. It was everywhere. I could feel it seeping into the cloth of my pants. I didn't know what to do. I was panicking for about 2 minutes before I just said frick it, apologized to my co-worker for having to leave early and drove home sitting on my crappy butt for about 15 minutes until I could finish up and take a shower. +1 for poo juice. I used to be a receptionist for a huge and very stuffy Fortune 50 company. There was once an after-hours VIP meeting taking place in my lobby work area, as it was more comfortable. I walked into this room of 30 nationwide corporate presidents and VPs, saw someone I thought I knew and called, "Hey, Jeffrey, how are you?" Every face turned, including the one that wasn't Jeffrey. I pretended I had a Bluetooth on, turning my head and pointing at my bare ear and shrugging apologetically at everyone. Not a big deal, but when the upper echelon only notices you when they need something or you frick up, you want to do as little of the latter as possible. I was young trying to act smart and all that, and I pronounced epitome phonically and everyone caught it. I saw the looks. Funnily enough, I heard epitome pronounced correctly on TV later that night and looked it up. Never have I been so embarrassed. I had only ever read the word, and I'm fairly well read, so I never caught it before. I still turn red thinking about it. I used to do that with infrared. I always thought it was infrared. I was in a management meeting of a maternity hospital and someone raised the point that there were fewer teenage pregnancies than the previous year, which meant their income was down. She said we need more teenage pregnancies, so I say I can help. Turns out they define teen pregnancies as underage pregnancies. Didn't go down quite as well as I'd hoped. They never do when they're underage. My first week and first job at Chick-fil-A, I was learning how to make tea and lemonade. At my store, we made 8 gallons of each at a time. Since this is in Georgia, you make unsweet and sweet tea. You line up 8 buckets on the counter, boil enough water for each, and put in the tea bags. For the containers intended to be unsweetened tea, you stop at this step, but for sweet tea, you put the measured amount of sugar in the containers. After you finish all of this, you throw them in the fridge and wait for them to be ready. I was shown all of this by my supervisor and they said to do the same thing for the lemonade, except instead of tea bags, you put in the lemon juice. He put 2 containers of sugar in front of me and told me to make regular lemonade and diet lemonade. Then he left. So, I followed the same steps I used for the tea. Put in water, lemon juice and sugar for regular. For the diet lemonade, I put in water, lemon juice, and I stopped at that step. Done. I didn't find out later that one of the sugar containers he gave me was equal sweetener. I guess he figured I was smart enough for figure it out. He was wrong. We had a lot of returned diluted lemon juice the next day. TL. DR. I sold plain lemon juice to customers at Chick-fil-A because I thought diet lemonade had no sugar in it. To be fair, it isn't your fault because he didn't show you. It's not training if the trainer is half-assing it. I worked in a hookah lounge. A lot of our customers usually spoke Arabic, and on a slow night these two guys came in and they seriously looked like they spoke Arabic, so I start welcoming them into the lounge in Arabic and telling them about our specials. Once they came into the light, I saw that they were both gingers. I was embarrassed. Gingers don't know Arabic. Gingers don't know Arabic. Thank you, and good night. I'll be here till Tuesday. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.